Where do the dwarves' names from The Hobbit come from? Let's find out. Where's Hal, everybody, and welcome to yet another video. As a part of cleansing my palate, my dear friends, after watching and reviewing episodes of The Rings of Power, I decided to make a couple of videos about, my favorite aspects of Tolkien's works and the various things, various myths and legends and old texts that he was inspired by, because it was precisely through the works of Professor Tolkien that I got to be interested in Old Norse mythology, old European myths and legends, and ultimately that is why I decided to study these things at university and ultimately being inspired by them in my own creative output, which I will be reading out today. From a very, very old poem, an Old Norse poem that can be found in the Poetic Edda, which is a medieval collection of mythological and heroic poems. And this one is called Voluspa, and I'm going to be reading it out to you. It's going to be a English translation, one of the many English translations, and my own poetry, to go back to my original point, is very much inspired by it. I have tried and managed to combine the old Germanic alliterative metre with the Czech language, my own mother tongue, and then, of course, further expand my knowledge and my ability to compose poetry in a way that nobody does it anymore. Now, to go back to that poem, I've chosen it because, firstly, it is, I would say, a compulsory reading material for people who are interested in Old Norse mythology, because this poem, Voluspa, or the series Prophecy, basically traces quote-unquote, the basics of the Norse mythology from the creation of the earth to Ragnarok, or after Ragnarok, the doom of gods or twilight of the gods, which is not really the end of the world as many people, think. Mind you, I will be reading it, but this is an English translation, and I pronounced in this reading the Old Norse names in their kind of English pronunciation, not as they should be pronounced in Old Norse. So, for example, Yggdrasil is the pronunciation in Old Norse of the world tree, which English people pronounce Yggdrasil, or Yggdrasil, if you know what I mean. I did it just, to make it easier and make it more understandable for people who might be listening to this. Now, why have I chosen to read a bit, not the entire poem, a bit of this poem? Because it's the source of the names for the dwarves in The Hobbit. And I find it quite fascinating, It's just, I remember I read The Hobbit when I was like 7 or 8, and then, of course, when I ventured into the studies of old European myths and legends, I stumbled upon this poem, Völuspá, and I read the names, and I was still very young. I was a teenager, and I was like, oh my gosh, these are the names of the dwarves from The Hobbit. And then, from there, I started discovering more and more and more. And only then you can truly appreciate how much he loved Europe and how much he loved the history of Europe and the old folk tales and legends and poetry and songs of old that make our history, and that we should know and remember to know and remember our ancestors. So, without further ado, my dear friends, listen to this little snippet from the poem Voluspa as being translated into English, the series Prophecy, and read by European law. Enjoy, and have a nice rest of the day. Namarie. Hearing I ask from all the tribes, greater and lesser, the offspring of Heimdall, Father of the slain, you wished me well to declare living beings ancient stories, those I remember from furthest back. I remember giants born early in time, those nurtured me long ago. I remember 9 worlds, I remember 9 giant women, the mighty measuring tree below the earth. Early in time Ymir made his settlement. There was no sand, nor sea, nor cool waves. Earth was nowhere, nor the sky above. A void of yawning chaos. Grass was there nowhere, before the sons of Bur brought up the land surface. Those who shaped glorious Midgard, the sun shone from the south on the stone hall. Then the ground was grown over with the green leek. From the south, Sun, companion of the moon, threw her right hand round the sky's edge. Sun did not know where she had her hall. The stars did not know where they had their stations. The moon did not know what might he had. Then all the powers went to the thrones of fate, the sacrosanct gods, and considered this. To night and her children they gave names. Morning they named and midday, afternoon and evening, to reckon up in years. The Aesir met on Idavold plain. High they built altars and temples. They set up their forges, smithied precious things, shaped tongs and made tools. They played checkers in the meadow. They were merry. They did not lack for gold at all, until 3 ogre girls came, all-powerful women, out of giant land. That all the powers went to the thrones of fate, the sacrosanct gods, and considered this. Who should create the lord of the dwarves, out of Brimir's blood and from Blaine's limbs? There Modsognir became most famous of all dwarves, and Durin next. Many men-like figures the dwarves made, out of the earth, as Durin recounted. New moon and dark of moon, north and south, east and west, master thief, Dvalin, Bivor, Bavor, Bombur and Nori, An and Anar, great-grandfather and mead-wolf, Licker and staff-elf, wind-elf and Thrain, known and Thorin, Thror, colour and wise, corpse and new advice, now I have rightly, Regin and counsel clever, reckoned up the dwarfs. Fili and Kili, foundling and Nali, Haft and Vili, Hanar and Svur, Frar and Hornborer, Freg and Seapool, Loamfield, Yari, Oakenshield. Time it is to tally up the dwarves in Dvalin's troop, for the children of men to trace them back to Lofar, those who sought out Frar's Holstone, the dwelling of Loamfield on Jorovelir. There were Draupnir and Dolgthrasir, Grey Hair, Mound River, Lee Plain, Glow, Skirvir, Virvir, Skafid, and great-grandfather. Elf and Yngvi, Oakenshield, Fjallar and Frosty, Finn and Ginnar. They'll be remembered while the world endures, the long list of ancestors going back to Lofar.